Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. Here is an ammonia world. One of these, perhaps very much like this, is a potential home to the Thargoid race. We don't know yet, of course, whether they prefer terrestrial worlds with the land like this, or whether they perhaps originate from gaseous worlds. However, one thing seems extremely likely. This world here, many hundreds of light years above the galactic core, is extremely unlikely to be their place of origin. In fact, their place of origin is still very much a mystery, and even though some of the earlier games did share some of that information, there's no guarantee that's going to translate directly across to Elite Dangerous. What we do know, however, is that the Thargoids certainly have a very keen interest in the area of space around the human bubble. Nearly every single encounter with Thargoid technology and the Thargoids themselves has been around the Pleiades Nebula. And whilst there have been some barnacles and other things found within the surrounding areas such as the Colonia Nebula and the Witchhead Nebula, that currently seems to be the limit of their territory, or at least the limit of where they are being encountered. So then, why is this important? Well, it's important because these areas are very close to the current human-inhabited bubble. The Pleiades Nebula, the Colonia Nebula and the Witchhead Nebula are within the immediate vicinity of the Solar System, as well as all the other homes to human civilization. But humanity is no longer limited to this area of space. Over the previous few years, humans have expanded their reach and now inhabited other areas, most notable of which is Colonia. Over 20,000 light years away from the Solar System, here is a new inhabited area centered around the traveling station, Jack Station. And this really does pose a number of new questions, doesn't it? And first and foremost among those, is Colonia a potential target for the Thargoid threat? And secondly, if it's not a target, is it a potential home or escape route for those that wish to avoid the Thargoids? To start with then, we'll take a look at the second question here. Is it a potential area to escape the Thargoids? Well, perhaps for many, the difficult thing with Colonia is its sheer distance away from humanity. 20,000 light years is a long way to travel. For many players, that's many play sessions, and for some, it's going to be an extremely boring trek. Now currently there are a few outposts and stations along the route, but they are fairly scattered, and there's not that many of them. This is something that seems to be changing with a new community goal. A player submitted one by the Chapter House of Inquisition. The plan is to construct 3 starports along the route towards Colonia, and this hopefully should make the trek far less daunting for most people. Now, these community goals have been broken down into 3 stages. We're currently in the middle of the second one, and the third one will enable the construction of the 3rd starport should it successfully complete. Now, there's a very interesting note on the first 2 of these community goals which has led to some speculation, and indeed perhaps not many people will be aware of this. Now, I'm going to read out the first couple of lines from those community goals. The Carmodino Chapter House of Inquisition has announced plans to establish a series of starports between the core systems and Colonia to make the daunting voyage a little easier. A total of 3 starports have been planned, which the Chapter House hopes will expedite the creation of a freight and passenger service known as the Blue Star Line. Now that's a really interesting part of the overall community goal, isn't it? What is a freight and passenger service? Have Frontier perhaps covertly snuck something into this community goal? After all, it all seems very convenient, the timing of this CG, doesn't it? Firstly, the construction of the starport making the journey there easier, and secondly, the mention of this passenger transport. And it's mentioned once again in the second community goal, where it says, the aim of the project is to establish a series of starports along the route to Colonia and expedite the creation of a new freight and passenger service to the remote region. So speculation is rife as to exactly what that means, but chief among those ideas is the suggestion that just maybe it will be a transport service to get our ships quickly and efficiently to Colonia. A service not too dissimilar to the current ship transfer method, but one that can be initiated on this side rather than have to travel there first. One way or another then, it seems that the journey to Colonia is about to be made somewhat easier. That brings us back to the first question then, just how safe of a place is Colonia going to be in the event of Thargoid arrival and Thargoid invasion? Well, first then, assuming that the Thargoids are indeed going to invade, then we'd just need to have a look at their current areas of activity. As I mentioned earlier, the barnacle sites, which we now know are related to Thargoids, have not been discovered anywhere beyond a few hundred light years outside of the Pleiades region. And with a few exceptions, the majority of the Thargoid interdictions have occurred within the same region, and the majority of those have occurred in and around the Maya system. In addition to that, over 200 Thargoid surface sites have all been discovered, each of them within less than 150 light years of the Merope system. So it would seem that the Thargoids have a very keen interest in the Pleiades region. It's also more than possible that they were there in that region way before humanity arrived. So perhaps depending on how the Thargoids view things such as territory, they could see human incursion there as somewhat of a threat, especially considering we've been messing with their barnacles somewhat. Ultimately then, the point remains that everything Thargoid related has happened within a very specific area of space, and the mystery surrounding the Formidine Rift ultimately led to the conclusion that there are some safe areas out there from this menace, the Conflux, Hawkins Gap, as well as Formidine itself, each of them a significant distance away from Sol that is very close to the same distance as Colonia itself. So is Colonia going to be a safe haven? Well, any answer to that is very much premature at the moment and jumping to conclusions, but it would seem very, very likely. Are the players out there in Colonia going to find themselves outside of the fray of whatever starts occurring with the Thargoids? Well, that is also very much a possibility. But with the arrival of a speculated passenger and freight transport service, they may find that the journey between Colonia and the core world is about to become that much easier. It's an interesting proposition to say the least, a safe area of humanity and an area at war. But then there's always another possibility, and that is that nowhere is safe. Even out there, perhaps in the depths of space as far as Beagle Point, we could perhaps find ourselves being interdicted by alien forces. With the open beta of patch 2.4, the return, now having reached its conclusion, it would seem likely that it won't be too long until it reaches the live servers, and with it, it should undoubtedly bring a few answers. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.